It's one of the best things in the world to have created something, and then coming up for 30 years later that people are still discovering it or still playing it, or there's new versions of the game coming out.
I think that Worms continues to resonate with people after being out there on the video game scene for so long, for over 2 decades.
It's just got that right balance of fun, competitive, casual, but also kind of deep. Yeah, for me, that's the perfect game.
It's just good, clean fun. You know, there's no agenda with it. You're playing these little fictional characters. You're blowing each other up. They're cute. They make funny little sounds. They die in funny little ways. You know, and I'm sure that there are people out there who get hugely competitive about it. I never really did. I just really enjoyed the gameplay.
You just didn't have the angst that you now get with a lot of games. A lot of competitive games, people take it a lot more seriously. And it's hard to take a Worms game seriously when they're calling out revenge and saying your shot was boring, and it sort of takes the edge off it. You're allowed to feel okay about losing.
My son started playing, and he discovered it, I think 2 years ago, 9 years old. And for this generation of kids to be able to pick up a game that old and still think it's fun, there's not many games that can do that, and Worms is one of those.
A lot of people, even in senior levels in the games industry, you know, the amount of people who stop me, whether it's events or whether it's in meetings, and say, I grew up playing Worms, right? I was playing at university, you ruined it. You know, my degree was so bad because I was playing at night, playing Worms, LAN parties. The last time I was at Gamescom, it was one of the government officials from, like, the German government who came up and were being introduced to me. And I was like, hi. And they're like, Worms totally killed my final year. This is people's childhoods who have grown up and been inspired and are making games in our industry. Worms probably was the first mass market, mainstream indie game that was made by a bedroom programmer.
The UK software industry was born out of people creating games in their bedroom. And it's a really, you know, rather than big companies involved, it was small groups, small publishers.
I grew up in quite a poor upbringing, and so consoles weren't really a thing when we had 8-bit. You know, a Spectrum was, I think at the time, probably £100 to purchase, right? Every household could, even those who didn't have money could have them.
My first computer was something called a Microtan 65, and you had to build it yourself. You had to solder all the components onto the board. It had like 1.5K of memory and a graphical resolution of a massive 64 by 64 pixels.
It was an interactive experience. It wasn't just a game playing experience. You were changing, and you know, I know it's not technically modding, but you were modding around and playing.
As soon as I saw a computer and realised you could make something move on the screen. Back then it was like magic when I was a kid. And the openness of the development on the Amiga was perfect for it. Like every computer was a dev kit. I just feel very lucky that I grew up when I did, for essentially what was the birth of the UK video game industry, through home computers, through bedroom coders.
You know, it's all about gameplay. Everything is about gameplay. And I still say, wherever this industry goes and whatever it does, the most important thing is gameplay.
When it was just a game for me and my friends to play, when we should have been doing schoolwork, and when people were skipping lessons to play it, and when it eventually got banned from school, the main thing I wanted to create was a game that didn't become repetitive, that didn't get boring. Because the aim wasn't to create a game that was published. The aim was to create a game that we'd never get sick of playing. One of the nicest things is that I've never actually got sick of the game. So I imagine like any author or director or musician or whatever can get sick of the things they created. But I can honestly, hand on heart, say I've never got sick of my game.
I would never change that experience, not for anything on the planet, because I think truly in your lifetime, if you have the privilege to work on a franchise or an IP that has achieved what Worms has done, you know, it's a legacy in the games industry. It's one of those games that people will be talking about in 20, 30, 40, 50 years, forever.
Alien Breed was my baby. Who knows that one? It was #1 in the charts for a year, and yet nobody says, "Are you the guy that did Alien Breed?" No, it's always Worms. Always Worms.
I'm pleased that not only Worms has kept its audience, but I'm pleased that it's finding new audiences all the time. For the little game made for me or mates, it still blows my mind.